Okay, so short video disclaimer, if you haven't watched part 2, I'd recommend watching part 2 first, because part 2 and 3 are part of the same video, and it will just make more sense. Yeah, but if you've already watched part 2, then feel free to watch part 3. Let's get back into the video. Okay, so now that we've looked at the front, let's look at the back. When it comes to the back, there are a few things to take note of. First, I'm just going to talk about the trapezius, because maybe that's the easiest thing to talk about. With the trapezius, just think of it like a dagger shape. Like that. And then imagine that there's some sort of crown jewel in the hilt of the dagger, and that will kind of help you to get the shape down. So let's just draw that on the back. Same sort of thing where you draw that circular like shape. I'm just going to draw that dagger-like shape. And you can see right there, that would represent your trapezius muscle. Okay. Let's move on, and then yeah, maybe you would have your shoulder blades here and here. Another thing to note is the erector spinae. These are the muscles that go either side of the spine. I don't know whether I'd say it's that visible, it's more like you can see the curvature of it. If the abdominals were what helps you crunch on the front, imagine your erector spinae are kind of what helps you twist and turn on the back. So I'm just going to draw two spheres and we're going to do some box shapes. One like this. One like this. And imagine that they're two very stretched out balloons. You can just draw some contour lines across. To show it's like a 3D object. And so that's the erector spinae. Essentially it's going to be covered, but you might see some of the bulge of the erector spinae. Especially because you have the next muscle we're going to talk about, which is the latissimus dorsi. I should write down these names actually. So trapezius erector. Yeah, it's erector spinae. And then this one's the latissimus dorsi that we're going to look at. So same again, you're gonna draw a ton of circles, especially when studying anatomy. So again, two kind of circles. We can connect it together with some S-curves. We can do a line of action down the middle, like that. Can do roughly. Roughly where the bottom is, which is roughly here. And so the latissimus dorsi, imagine like a huge sweeping blanket that covers over the top of part of the shoulder blade and the erector spinae. And I guess potentially like the bottom half of the trapezius, I think. So I'm just going to sketch in the latissimus dorsi. But yeah, you can see how it's kind of like a giant overarching cape. And then sure, we can sketch in where our shoulder blade is on either side. Can sketch in where our arms are. And this is kind of just a crude drawing to show you things in context with each other. And then yeah, we can get that trapezius-like shape going. And so yeah, this overarching cape shape here, latissimus dorsi. And yeah, that pretty much sums up the back muscles, because essentially just down here, either side of this, these are just the obliques. And then you've got, yeah, the gluteus maximus, but we'll look at that when we get down to legs. I'll look at drawing the back, but how do we make this look more dynamic? How do we go from structural drawing like this to something that feels more fluid and nice? And so that's when I'm gonna talk about another book that I've got, Design Your Own Anime and Manga Characters by TB Choi. And I like this book not necessarily to teach you structural drawing, but to teach you how to make the things that we've just looked at more fluid. So same again, ribcage, pelvis. And I'm just thinking about that line of action or that S-curve there. Just gonna draw where that rib cage opens up, and we're gonna group the abdominals and the serratus anterior in the same section. Like that. I'm just drawing like the outline, and then remember the balloon kind of shape. Or another way to think about it is, imagine that there's a string and there's two water balloons that are hanging on the string, and that wraps around the neck. So here, I'm gonna just do the 2 water balloons. One here. One here as well. Just gonna do that shoulder there. Yeah, this would be where that neck is. And so you can see how in this we start to group it all together. We group where the rib cage opens up with the pectoralis major muscles and serratus anterior, and then you could think about this as section 1, I guess. Section 2 is where the obliques and the abs are. So first of all, just gonna draw a more straight side for this side, and then where it curves in, or where the person's now bending backward, you can see how it comes in and then comes back out. Think about where the middle line is. It's closer to the edge, so belly button's gonna land on the edge. And you don't really have to do a line for the obliques, but you can. Line for the obliques. And then that just falls down into the pelvis, which is section 3. Here, so imagine this as like pants, then either side is where our legs are, like this. And so, yeah, you can see that we have our male shape there, and we've got our female shape here. Now all I'm gonna do is we're gonna look at some other kind of poses, and we're gonna look at how does that now connect with the arms, or what we've already covered, I guess. So I'm just gonna do this female one here. Same again. The big circular like shape for the upper body, our rib cage. Draw a line of action. This is our pelvis here. So just gonna draw, because this is a female, this is where the balloons kinda end, down here. And then you can also think about rib cage. Rib cage is gonna be this. You can see how actually now we're starting to simplify things into less lines. The more confident you get with this, the less lines that you're going to really need to communicate the form. This here represents where our serratus anterior is going to be. And then we're going to think about the hourglass shape to help us out here. So, and then hourglass shape here. to help us out. That gives me the abdominals and the obliques. Obliques are going to be here. And as we come down into the, what do you call it? The pelvis, we're just going to think about that brief-like shape. Can draw like a pair of briefs. And then it's just going to fall down into where the legs are, like this. But we're not doing legs today. And so we can draw in that handlebar-like shape to represent the clavicle. Draw it like a rough triangular-like shape to represent the trapezius, and then that's going to represent our neck. In terms of our arms, or how we're going to break this down, I'm going to teach you something new, I guess. So we're actually going to start with where our hands are. Because that's going to give us an indicator of how the arms are going to be. So I'm just drawing like rough shapes for where the hands are. And then here, if you remember that shield-like shape again, that shield-like shape here represents where the deltoid is. And then if you remember when we were doing arms, we've got our bicep. And that's going to represent, this lump here is going to represent our bicep shape. And then because this is foreshortened, all I have to do is do a small shape like that. And that's our arm on this side. On this side we're not going to see as much because the shoulder's going to be, or the rest of the arm's going to be hidden. So this is our deltoid right here. So again, it's going to come. Best way to show our arms. You've got your deltoid like that. Bicep is like your first curve, and then it's gonna do like a second curve, kind of like this. This is our deltoid. That's our bicep. And that's the rest of our arm there. You can see how it curves in, like that. So that's all we're doing here. And so you can see how we started with where the hands were, so we knew where to put our arms. Yeah, and then we'd have wherever our head is up here. But you can see how we get a fairly convincing female-like shape. Can do like a belly button. Well, I don't know whether that's a bit too high. It might be fine. And then, yeah, obliques either side. Yeah. And then we'll do, we haven't done hands, but we'll look at hands on another day. So I'm just gonna I'm not gonna do them too detailed because hands is for another tutorial. I'm just gonna lightly indicate hands. But I recommend that in your own time, find some poses and things and try and take what I've taught you here. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that can give you a few building blocks. So next episode, I think I'll do the face. Either that it will be the face or the hands, I'm not sure yet. But if you have anything that you want to see, let me know. Post in the comments down below. Thanks for watching.